Hi, my name is Jennifer Brown and I work at Walton EMC. Does anybody know what Walton EMC is? Well, Walton EMC is a power company, so we provide electricity to homes and schools and businesses in this area. Now, electricity is a really neat thing. We use electricity a lot and don't even realize it. For example, whenever you go home and you turn on the TV to watch your afternoon cartoons, you're using electricity. When you flip on the lights, you're using electricity. Even when you get something out of the refrigerator, you're using electricity. What about that phone or video game or Chromebook that you love? Well, you charge it using, guess what? Electricity. So while electricity is really neat, it can also be dangerous. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about electricity and how to be safe. So you see, I have to be safe. So I have to wear some funny outfits, okay? So you can see my little jacket here, and you can see my hard hat. Also, to keep me safe, I'm going to have to wear some safety glasses and some big rubber gloves. Now, we have a little town here, and this little town looks a lot like the town that you may live in. It has power lines running down the road. Now, why do you think that we put these power lines so high up in the air? Well, we put these power lines so high up in the air to keep you safe. We don't want anyone coming in contact with these power lines because they can be very dangerous. Down these power lines run 14,400 volts of electricity, and one brush against them can really cause harm, a lot of harm, or even death. So we want you to stay far away from these. Now, sometimes things happen, like maybe a storm knocked a tree into the lines, or maybe we had snow and ice and it made the lines heavy and we had a line to fall down. What do? Well, the line looks pretty harmless, but we don't know if it has electricity running through it or not. Our favorite saying around here is just because you can't see it, just because you can't hear it, or just because you can't smell it, doesn't mean it's safe to touch. Let's see if this is safe to touch. Does that look safe to touch to you? Absolutely not. So look, when it's on the ground, you don't see anything, you don't hear anything, you don't smell anything, but if you were to come up and touch it, that would spell disaster. Now, I have this little guy right here. He's not as smart as you guys are. In fact, I call him Mr. Airhead because if you'll look right there in his head, there's not a brain, it's just air. And Mr. Airhead doesn't know he's not supposed to get near a down power line. So he sees it and he comes out of his house and he gets a little bit too close to it. Let's see what happens to Mr. Airhead. All right, you see Mr. Airhead lit up. Well, where Mr. Airhead lit up is where he has electricity going through his body. So you see it's going through his arm, down his body, down his leg, and into the ground. So if you have a down power line, make sure that you stay far away, tell an adult, and call 911. Now, another way that a power line might come down is sometimes there are car wrecks. And a car might hit a pole and the pole might come down on the car. So I don't have a car today, but I do have a school bus. So we'll pretend that this school bus got in an accident and the power line came down on the school bus. Uh-oh, what do you do now? Think in your mind, what do you think is the safest thing to do? Well, it might surprise you, but the safest thing for you to do is to stay inside the bus or the car. electricity is always trying to find a path to ground. So it is going through the shell of the bus, through the tire, and into the ground. Now, he caught on fire, sorry. So the electricity is going through the bus, through the tire, and down to the ground. It doesn't care about you. You're inside. You're not a path to the ground, so you are safe. But what happens if your bus catches on fire and you have to get out? Well, hopefully that won't happen, but if it does, or if you're in a car, what you do is you open the door, and of course, I only have the back door that opens on this bus, but you open the door and you're going to cross your arms over your chest, put your feet together, and you're going to jump out without touching the bus or the car and the ground at the same time. And then you're going to do something that looks a little silly. You're going to put your feet together and you're going to bunny hop away. Now, when you think you're far enough away, slide your feet apart. If they don't tingle, more than likely you're far enough away. If you feel a little bit of tingle, put them back together and keep on hopping. If this situation happens to you, no matter whether you're staying inside your vehicle or you're outside of your vehicle, it's important to tell people to stay away, because here we go again. We have Mr. Airhead. Now, Mr. Airhead, he might not be very smart, but he sure is a nice guy. And he sees something has happened, so he's going to come over here and he is going to help these kids out of the bus. What do you tell Mr. Airhead? Well, we tell Mr. Airhead, no, get away. Because if Mr. Airhead touches the bus and the ground at the same time, he's electrocuted himself. So you see, once again, he has electricity running through his arm, down his body, into his leg, and into the ground. So, always warn people to stay far away if this happens to you. Now, the power lines rarely fall down, but we know what to do in case they do. But sometimes we can be as tall as the power lines. For example, let's say you're doing some yard work, or your mom and dad are doing some yard work, and they want to maybe clean the gutters on the house, or maybe they want to even paint the house. So they get their ladder and they're walking from the shed to the house, and they forget that these power lines are here. And they might accidentally brush up against the power lines with this ladder. Now, do you want to be holding on to this ladder if it comes in contact with a power line? No, definitely not. And you don't want anybody you love to come in contact with the power lines when they're holding something tall like that. So anytime you have something tall, you need to make sure that you stay far away from the power lines. And kids, it's also okay to tell your parents. Some adults don't know about this. It's okay to tell them, hey, be careful, don't get near the power lines, or even if there's a down power line, it's important to remind them not to go near that also. Another way we might be as tall as the power lines is if we're flying a kite. So, let's say we're flying a kite and the wind picks up and blows our kite into the power line. Let's see what happens. Uh-oh. That's not a good day for her. If you're flying your kite, fly it away from power lines. And even if your kite gets really high up in the air and you don't know where it's going to land, the best thing to do is to let go of the kite, because you don't want it to accidentally land in the power lines. You can buy another kite from Walmart, but we can't buy another you from Walmart. So it's important to stay away from the power lines when flying a kite. Something else that might be tall in your yard is a tree. Now, when I was a kid, I loved to climb trees. I wasn't very good at it, but I enjoyed it. Sometimes trees get planted a little too close to the power lines. Even if it's not touching the power line, it's important to stay away from trees that are near or touching the power lines, because the trees can also be dangerous. This is just one of the reasons that we cut the trees that are close to power lines, because we're trying to keep you and your family safe. Also, have you ever had your power to blink on and off and you didn't know why? Well, a lot of times trees can be too close to the power lines, the wind can blow, and it will blow the tree into the power line and cause your power to blink. Did you know we also have power lines underground? And these power lines have just as much power going through them as the ones that are up here. So some of you, if you have power lines underground, you might have one of these neat green boxes in your yard. Now, unfortunately, I've seen all kinds of things take place on this green box. It might be a base for tag, a stage for tap dancing, but honestly, it is really dangerous. So please stay away from these green boxes in your yard. These green boxes are called transformers. And if you were to open it up, it's locked, it's supposed to be locked. But if you were to open it up, there's a lot of electricity in there. And when you're standing on top of this box or touching this box, you're just feet away from 30,000 volts of electricity. So let's say we have, oh, this one doesn't have a name, so we'll just call her Susie, okay? So we have Susie here. And Susie has been playing on top of this box. And that's not real safe, but she hasn't gotten hurt. So the box, she sees the lock broke and it came open, so she wants to check it out. So she goes in here to see what's in this box that she's been playing on. And unfortunately for Susie, that was not the right thing to do. So make sure that if you have a green box in your yard, that you stay away from it. Also, it's important to let your parents know that this is not a safe thing to play on. I was driving down the road just the other day and I saw kids waiting for the school bus. It was a mom and it was a little girl. And guess where they were waiting for the school bus? They were sitting right on top of this green box. That's definitely not safe. Also, when we dig, we have to be careful not to hit the power lines, okay? Now, if you're just digging like a little hole for a flower, you're fine. But if maybe you're digging deep enough to plant a large shrub or a tree, you need to have your parents call 811 before they dig. And someone will come out and paint and show you where the power lines are underground. Well, this guy, he did not call 811 before he dug. And he was planting a tree, and so he is digging right here where he wants to plant his tree. And what has happened? Well, he's not having a good day, is he? So make sure to let people know that there are power lines underground and that you do need to call 811 before you dig so that you can dig safely and in safe areas. Now, I hope you have enjoyed the presentation. It is important to always be aware of your surroundings and to always be careful around electricity. Thank you.